I also heard that reacting to YouTube videos is really bad for the original creator. Luckily, I'm super tiny, right? So I'm not going to steal this guy's metrics. And I also upload videos after reacting to them like days later. I'm gonna say that I do it because I want the YouTubers to get their bread first, but to be honest, I do it because I'm lazy and I don't make money on YouTube anyway, so it wouldn't matter.
So Sony has just announced the PlayStation Pro, and I'm writing this hot off the heels of the announcement as well as the latest state of play, and I just wanted to get some heated gamer words onto a page and read them out loud because I just needed to. This whole announcement, this $700 console, and the lackluster amount of work that has gone into marketing the product is just, I'm so dumbfounded by this. It's a console that will be launching at an MSRP of $700 with no disc tray, 2 terabytes of data, or also known as enough space to download exactly one Call of Duty game, and one pack-in game, which is the same pack-in game that the PS5 launched with 4 years ago. And there will only be a handful of games released for the console that will support these updated specs right out of the...
Okay, can I just say that we all know that the PS5 Pro is not a good value. Like, most normal people understand that it's not a good value. It's for those people who want to play those enhanced games at the enhanced quality, right? The few Sony exclusives that matter, or Sony enhanced games like the Final Fantasy VII, what is it called? Rebirth? I don't know what the fuck the Final Fantasy game is called. I don't care for the new Final Fantasy. Those games, those are the kinds of games that people want to play on their consoles, and them being the ones that actually get the enhancements makes a lot of sense.
Gate. Everything about the announcement just screams tone deaf to me by Sony. And I'm happy to say that I'm not alone in this assessment, as the response to the PS5 Pro has been pretty whelming. I think it's fair to say that
pretty whelming, not under, not over,
is a good idea. While it does offer better performance over the PS5 in almost every way, many people do not think that the $700 price tag justifies the benefits.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that
I'm glad he brought that up.
Ill-defined the benefits of the Pro version are. Sony has shown 3 major things that define what makes the PS5 Pro so special, and those things are PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution,
which I think is actually really important. I think that is actually the coolest feature of the new PlayStation. Upscaling is cool. If it's used well, and it's not used as like a way to remove optimization or having to optimize your games, I think super resolutions are cool. I really love DLSS. I think the RTX series, the 20 and 30 series before 40 series and frame generation, because, I mean, everyone has frame gen now. Yay, thanks FSR. Before frame generation, the reason to get an RTX graphics card was not for ray tracing. It was for deep learning super sampling. It was absolutely for having the best super sampling and like upscaling on the market. And that's always a big selling point, because it makes games that would normally run like butt or run just about good enough at decent graphics. I mean, resolutions, whatever you want to call it. Generally, people are going to say resolution. So, say a game that's supposed to natively run at 1440p, but it can't really handle it at the 30 FPS that a lot of the console games get. You get something closer to 25, 27, 28, whatever. Now, if you upscale it, boom, you can upscale it. You're going to be above that 30. Lock that shit down. Bada bing, bada boom. You got a super smooth game. Still looks relatively good in stills. Maybe a little distorted in motion. But when you put that motion blur on top when it comes to console, you really won't even notice it. I think that this is the most important feature of the PS5 Pro, and will probably go on to power the PlayStation 6, if that exists.
Which is just a fancy way of saying you get more pixel per pixel when playing in 4K. Better performance so games can reach frame rates of 120, and upgraded ray tracing.
If they couldn't reach 120 on PS5 base, they're not going to be able to do it on PS5 Pro. CPU matters for frame rate. I don't know if you guys know that. CPU matters for frame rate. If the game can't run stably on the 8 cores and 16 thread Zen 2 architecture, raising the frame rate, raising the amount of GPU compute won't do anything if you're not at a base canvas resolution of 4K, because you're not bottlenecking the GPU at that point. That's what you need to do. You need to choke the shit out of the CPU and force the GPU to do all of the work to push those high frame rates at 4K. I doubt that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to work that way. You're probably still going to be getting 30 to 60 FPS in most of the games that you're playing on the PS5 Pro. I don't let Sony's marketing change the way that you feel about that. It's an absolute fallacy.
Wow, these are kind of nothing burger upgrades, aren't they? So all of this got me
One of them
thinking
isn't
about
even a
the
real
current
upgrade. So
state
yeah,
of
it's
the
not.
console
It is a
market.
nothing
The
burger.
console wars are over because the market as it stands today is stagnant. Sales are declining because the price of said consoles has stayed the same since launch, and hell, the digital-only version of the PS5 actual consoles has
I want to go
stayed
back. Xbox console sales being down, but Xbox being fine with it makes a lot of sense for Xbox's marketing and strategies in the console race. They don't really care about the console anymore of Xbox. They now care about the Xbox brand. They want Game Pass to be accessible eventually on every platform. They would love for Xbox Game Pass to be on your phone, on your Nintendo Switch too, on your PlayStation 5 maybe, on your Steam Deck, on your computer, on your TV. They want it on everything. So Xbox's console sales, the box that's supposed to get you into the ecosystem, that is a loss leader and fucking loses the money, is probably way less important than their subscription service, which hopefully they're making the vast majority of their money back on. Sony, on the other hand, is trying to get you in their ecosystem and sell you games, and that's all they have. They don't have a really good library like the Xbox Game Pass does. So if they're not selling you the box to get into the ecosystem, they're cooked. They're losing money.
the same since launch, and hell, the digital only version of the PS5 actually got more expensive than when it launched in 2020. When it launched, it only cost $400, but now it's sitting at $450. Never in my life have I seen a console go up in price after it's been on the market for so long. Things aren't looking good for either Sony or Microsoft right
Thanks,
now
Concord.
in terms of consoles or even game development, as neither company has really made a push to even make any games for
Okay, I mean, there's a difference. There's a difference. I see it.
their damn
Sure.
consoles. Shown here are all of the current PS5 games you can only play on the console, but even then,
Holy shit, that's such a small list of games. What? That's it? Aren't we getting Astrobot, though, eventually? That's it? That's all? Those are the Sony... When people make the joke of PlayStation has no games, I think of it as a meme. Like, I don't think it's serious. I don't think it's real. But look... What the fuck is this console's been out for 5 years, right? What is this? This is a joke, right?
the majority of them are only timed exclusives as they often make their way to PC.
Yeah,
Some
Spider-Man
require
2 is
the
gonna be on
traditional
PC.
PSVR headset, and others aren't even out yet. It's a sad state of affairs for Sony and Microsoft because they have these incredibly expensive consoles and yet nothing to play on them.
Where the video games?
And when games
Real.
do come out
He's so
for these
right.
consoles, they end up being live service pieces of garbage that do nothing but die after 2 weeks. Looking at
Ouch.
you, Concord, you
Ouch, I knew he did it.
game, you.
I knew he was
With all
gonna
this
do
in
it.
mind, I want to ask a question. Why the hell would anyone buy a console in today's world? What is the purpose of buying either an Xbox, a PS5, or any other console for that matter?
If you buy a Nintendo console, Nintendo really sucks right now. So if you're totally fine with the way that they do business and the way they try to shut down smaller companies and remove the idea of games preservation, fuck you for that. But you're allowed to do it. It's okay. I just think that Nintendo's a really scummy company. Nintendo is the only one worth buying a console for because their exclusives are absolute time and time again bangers. I don't care how much you hate Nintendo. Super Mario Odyssey is a fucking wonder. Super Mario Wonder is an amazing game. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, great, right? You can even go further back. Let's take it back a generation. Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze on the Nintendo Wii U, great game. Super Smash Bros., Mario Kart 8, all phenomenal pieces of software. They're good games. Nintendo doesn't release slop. Even when you look at their games like Pokken, that is like a competitive game and didn't do well, ARMS, competitive game didn't do well, Splatoon, a little more profitable and prominent than the other two, but still not super out there. A lot of people don't think about it. It's because it's a Nintendo. If these were also on PC, if all of these were on PC, they'd be doing a whole lot better. I promise you that. Nintendo puts out bangers. So to say that consoles don't matter, wrong. To say that Sony and Microsoft consoles anymore don't matter, correct. I think Nintendo's consoles are still worth it.
when it feels like it's just giving diminishing returns. When consoles can go as high as $700, wouldn't it just be a much better investment overall to just buy a PC instead? Those are the questions I want to ask today. Why buy a console in today's market when you could buy a PC instead?
Because I don't want to fiddle around with settings, bro.
It would help immensely if you would like and subscribe down below.
Tinkering with settings, bro. I don't want to do that.
It also helps spread the conversation to more and more people. Now let's dive in. The best way to get to the bottom of the conundrum of today's topic is to understand why people buy consoles in the first place. Consoles have been a staple in the gaming industry since their inception, as it was deemed the only way to play arcade-style games at home, and so it became the standard. They were seen as a pretty luxury item to have because they required both a TV and a
PCs
game.
were a lot
But as time
worse.
progressed, it became a much more affordable pastime as TVs became more widespread and consoles became cheaper to produce and acquire. I'd say
some of the oldest video game consoles are worth like thousands, or worth at least $1,000 in today's money. Like you think of like the Amiga and the Magnavox Odyssey and the original Atari. Those consoles, and there may be another one that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but those original, like the ones before Nintendo, the ones before the Great Crash, those consoles are worth, there's in our money, adjusted for inflation, they're like the same price as the PS5 Pro, if not more. And they weren't great, but they were the luxury item of the time. When we think of video games now, we think of video games as like actually kind of a cheap pastime. We think of them as a hobby that doesn't cost a lot of money, not because the games themselves are cheap, but because there's so much value in each individual game. You're paying $70, you're paying $60 for a video game that lasts you 20 hours, 30 hours. If you're playing a live service game that's free, it lasts you for hundreds or thousands of hours, and the only thing it costs you is your time, generally, and the box to play on it, right? So if you buy the PS5, it's costing you $500. If you buy the Xbox Series S or X, $300 to $500. Those amounts are significantly smaller, even though today's money is tighter. So value for money now, gaming is amazing. It wasn't always this good. So now when we see that gaming has bad value for money, when it comes to things like the PS5 Pro, it looks completely out of left field because we've been in this value town for so long when it comes to gaming.
Say that they really came into their own during the 6th generation of consoles with the release of the PS2 and Xbox, as not only were they game
That's a fucking console.
They also functioned as cheap and
DVD
affordable
players,
DVD players,
baby.
and this
That's a
factor
fucking
cannot be
console.
discounted. When DVD players first hit the market in 1997, they
They were
could vary in
expensive.
price from $300 to $1,000.
Mhm.
So if you told someone you could also play DVDs and games on a PS2 for $300,
buy the PS2.
it was never really
Oh,
a
so
question
why the
about
fuck am I
which
gonna
was
buy the
more
DVD
valuable,
player?
was it? So these consoles weren't just
Son,
valuable
move
for
over.
gaming,
I wanna
but
watch a
also
movie.
as entertainment devices for the whole home. That's what gave them a lot of value around that time. And with every new console generation brought something new to the table in terms of graphical power and gaming experiences. Another thing that made them so valuable was because they were always so easy to use. It was as simple as buying the box, unpacking it, plugging in the console, and just playing.
That's what keeps some people away from PCs. I bought a PC gaming handheld, and I had to do all the rigmarole of setting up a fucking PC on this motherfucker right here. Okay, it's not fun. If you're not someone who wants to fuck around with PCs, this shit's not fun. Don't buy yourself a ROG Ally or an AYN Loki Mini Pro or a Legion Go. Go buy a fucking Steam Deck or a Nintendo Switch OLED. Actually, wait for the Switch 2. Don't buy a Nintendo Switch OLED. It's way too late. Buy yourself a fucking Steam Deck where there's way less front-end PC stuff. There's way more, it feels more like a console when you're playing with something like that. And I think that's one of the biggest selling points for consoles is the simplicity, the ease of use. And PC will never have that for as long as Windows is the main operating system. Windows doesn't give a shit about your gaming experience. Windows will use up more RAM and more CPU processing power than it ever really needs to or has any business doing just to fuck with your gaming experience, truly. You need to go and, debloat your Windows, install Atlas OS or Windows 11 Lite, things like that, to have a better gaming experience on Windows. If you have an older or a worse PC that's rocking a 4-core 8-thread or a 4-core 4-thread, 16, maybe as low as 8 gigs of RAM, an older hard drive. These are the things you have to do on Windows to keep your PC feeling like it's up to snuff instead of just installing Linux or Chimera OS, which is also Linux, but whatever. PCs are harder. PCs are more annoying. They're frustrating. They've got driver updates. Consoles are simple. Simplicity is king when it comes to a lot of casual gamers. It's just the truth. They don't want to have to muss about with settings. They don't want to. I don't want to sometimes. And all I've used for the last like 6 years has been PCs. I haven't bought a console. I didn't buy a PS5. I sold my PS4 like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and I haven't looked back.
There were no settings to fiddle with, no patches. You just played the games as they came.
I don't mind
Backwards
patches.
compatibility also offered the ability to play last generation's games in an easy way, which was a way for the consumer to carry forward the money they invested into the games of the last generation into the
A little harder to do now.
But support
You can
for
still do that on
backwards
PC.
compatibility was pretty inconsistent for all manufacturers, especially for Nintendo, which were always kind of in their own lane to begin with. But that also plays into the cons of owning a console. As we've progressed further into the console generations and being connected to the internet basically became a requirement, the positives of owning a console have started to stifle.
That's true.
And more negatives arise in their place. With the current generation of consoles, we're starting to
You can set up a PC without having internet. I don't know if you can open that many game launchers without having internet. When I'm honest, like if I'm honest, but you can absolutely set up a PC without having internet. You click I don't have internet, and you just skip past that, and it makes a local account instead of making a Microsoft account that's connected to their server. And then you can turn on the internet and download all the things you want to download, turn off the internet again, and then hopefully play some games on like good old games, GOG or something like that. If you're looking for an old school experience, you can't really do that on a console. You kind of gotta, especially when it comes to something like a PS5 Pro. You need to be connected to the internet. You're gonna have to connect to the internet. You have no disk drive. And even if you did have a disk drive, you have no games. You have like 12 games.
see an increasing
Sorry,
amount
my
of
bad.
diminishing returns when purchasing one. It's no longer as easy as it used to be when buying a system and just putting in a game straight out of the box. Very rarely does a game come out today that just works, something that you can just play from start to finish and has a satisfying beginning, middle, and end without having to have it updated and patched. You know,
You guys remember being able to put a disc in like a PS2 or like early PS3 games? But mainly, let's go with PS2 here. PS2, PS1. You pop the disc in, and then you can just start the game. You don't pop the disc in, and then it downloads the last 30 gigabytes of the game that should be on the disc, but instead it's going to put it onto your hard drive. And on a PS4, that motherfucker sounded like it was blowing up trying to get that last 30 gigs onto the hard drive. You had to wait 10 to 15 minutes, if not more, to play the game that you just bought, and you were like standing there at the midnight release thinking you were, cool with it, slick with it, and instead you're sick with it because you're sick of having to sit here and wait for your game to download when you bought the disc, you bought the physical version, and you shouldn't be waiting around for a patch or, the rest of the installation. It should all be on the disc. Even when it came to older games, there were some games where you had to have multiple discs or whatever, like Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube is a perfect example because the discs are really small. Big game, phenomenal game, amazing. One of the greatest games of all time. Original Resident Evil 4. If you're young, if you're a Zoomer and you've never played original Resident Evil 4, go play original Resident Evil 4. It's really good. Anyways, it was 2 discs on the GameCube because it was too big to fit on one disc. But of course, they didn't have patches back then. You didn't really have a choice. You just had to have multiple discs. There was a lot of games like that. Even on the PlayStation 1, there was a few games that had multiple discs because they were just too big. If you lost one of those discs, you just couldn't play through part of the game, which is really funny.
just
It
a
happened.
video game.
It happened to people, I promise.
Speaking of, plays into how few first-party games are being released from Sony and Microsoft these days. All of their studios release about one game on average per console generation because games cost so damn much to make.
And they
these
take so
days.
much time
And
to
when
make.
You're spending $500 for a console, you're gonna want the best games money can buy. Games that push the boundaries of the medium and do new and interesting things with gameplay, graphics, presentation, and sound. And
That's funny because Astrobot is like well loved, and isn't it just a rehash of like a bunch of old 3D platformers all mixed together with a little bit of Sony stuff? I think there were PS1 games with 4 discs. Damn, McGee, you're really old. Yeah, I didn't remember there was 4 disc games, but I know there was always multiple disc games, whether it was 2 or 3. But 4? God bless, that's fucking crazy. Thank you for the insight, old wise one. Thank you. Astrobot is a game that everyone's excited about and looking forward to, and this isn't boundary pushing. This isn't innovative. This is just a fun fucking video game. I don't think any of that's necessary. I think if you just make a good fucking product and make a fun game, no one needs boundary pushing stuff. I don't think that's true at all. Because look at Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Yeah, it has really good graphics. It's got great loading speeds. But at the core of it, it's just a really good 3D platformer that feels like old Ratchet & Clank at heart. That's all people want. Like, where the fuck is Jack and Daxter? Where's Sly Cooper? Give us those. Like, and they don't need to be some super lavish, 25-hour story. They can be 6 hours. They can be 5 hours. As long as they're a fun enough game, $70 is worth it for a lot of people for a game like that.
And with that increased level of production comes with it the increase in
Like,
game
how long is
price.
Astrobot?
The
Like,
cost of
6
AAA
hours,
game
right? Or 10
development
hours?
is not what it once
$300
was, so game
million?
prices have to rise to compete with
Who
it.
the fuck
And
told you? Who told you to spend $300 million on a video game? Who the fuck told you to do that? What the hell?
people aren't happy if they buy a game that runs them $70 and it ends up being dog shit in more ways than one. Expectations for games is higher than ever, so that $70 needs to go to some goddamn good graphics and gameplay.
I think it just needs to be good gameplay.
Will rightfully be upset. But with good graphics comes, of course, performance woes. It's a tale as old as time, really. This has been a pretty consistent theme through every console generation, with games fluctuating in performance as developers constantly push these tiny little boxes of hopes and dreams into producing mind-bending graphics. I'd say that developers,
And I think that's a problem. I think the more we focus on the what it looks like instead of the how it performs or if it's good is super like brain rot. It's very brain rot. It feels as if we're focused more on visual fidelity than we are on gameplays and I guess features is the word I'm looking for, right? You want a game with good quality platforming or shooting mechanics or movement, traversal, open world. You want the features of the game and the gameplay mechanics to stand out way more than the visuals. Any game can look phenomenal in a realistic setting now. We've gotten to the point, we've seen the Last of Us 2s, we've seen the Force Brokens, we've seen the Starfields. That doesn't matter. Because as you know, I named 2 games that for a while were critically panned for their performance or for their actual story. Because they just weren't doing enough with all the visuals they had. They weren't doing enough to make a cohesive story or to make a fun or good video game. What matters is making it, like, I'm going to say it again. Look at Astrobot. Yeah, it's got nice graphics, but it's just a lovable, cutesy 3D art style, and it's fucking great, and everybody likes it. I can't think of a single person who's played Astrobot and said, yeah, this game wasn't good. If it had realistic graphics, it would have been way better. And if you say that, you're probably stupid. Like, if you're thinking it right now, you can just click off the video, because you're dumb. You're an idiot, and you shouldn't be here. Well, I want to have a conversation with civil, adult, smart people with full functioning working brains. You're probably 14. Goodbye.
have gotten much better at rating in performance through optimization of games as time has progressed, and even today I think it's probably the best it's ever been. But that doesn't stop console makers from making multiple versions of the same console that offer varying levels of performance for different price points. This is a fairly new trend that has been adopted by both
If
Microsoft
someone stops
and Sony
and looks at shadows and says, man, these shadows are ugly, like, what are you doing with your life, man? Why are you stopping and looking at the ambient shadows instead of playing the video game and having fun? Like, what the fuck are you doing?
And in theory, I don't think it's a bad idea. Consoles have gotten expensive, and it gives people who have less expendable income more access to today's newer gaming experiences. But it also means that these less powerful consoles often get the short end of the stick when it comes to game development. Developers no longer see these models as the baseline for development and will instead develop for the more powerful consoles and work downward from there, cutting features like split-screen multiplayer, for example. They play worse than their more expensive counterparts, lacking the frame rates necessary to compete, but sometimes that's all people have access to and can afford. But let's also look at it from the perspective of someone who wants the best of the best that a console has to offer. They have a massive amount of expendable income.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a good point. I know what he's about to get at. He's gonna say that now because they work from the top and build down, and because there's no split screen. I actually really like split screen. I play a lot of split screen games with Marianne, with the wife, right? We play Horizon Chase Turbo on my computer. We've played a lot of Lost Castle 1. We played a few sessions of Lost Castle 2, but of course we both need our own computers for that right now because the split screen's not in. I want to get her to play through Cat Quest 2 with me because once again it's full couch co-op. I like couch co-op. I think couch co-op is also one of the big features and one of the big draws when it comes to console gaming because split screen multiplayer is kind of hard to do on PC. They're hard because controllers get funky or get wongo or weird, or there's just not enough games that like natively support it, and you just have to do a lot of weird stuff. I think that losing a feature like that, and having the audacity to charge more for a console than you did when you had it, it does seem kind of backwards, right? Do I think that it's like killing the medium and ruining gaming and like pushing us backwards, making us regress? No. But I do think it's a little strange to think of a feature like that as a selling point for older games, like the older Halos had split screen campaign co-op, and now they don't. But you have the audacity to charge me $70 instead of fucking 50 for Halo now. Weird, crazy, insane. Okay, maybe I won't pick up Halo.
Disposal, and they want the best console on the market. They buy these uber expensive console variants that offer incredible graphics and performance.
That looks good.
But it's never guaranteed. Game developers can never ensure that the games they make can hit those frame rates that the console manufacturers said that they could, so they just spent all of this money on the idea that games might perform better on the most expensive version. It feels like a scam. Why would I spend all of this money to play games that might run better? And even if they do run better, the changes on screen are minimal at best. The average consumer cannot tell when ray tracing is on or not, or if those frames go above 60 or even 30 for that matter. So it makes
I can tell when something's above 30.
The base model and the premium model.
I play a lot on 30 FPS just to see how it feels. I do it to myself.
A bad thing. But
any game that I can lock to 30, I do it, and then I go to 60 and see if I can feel a difference.
From any metric, you have to think of the people buying these.
I'll even lock to 40 sometimes.
These are parents, children,
30, 40, 60, 75, 120, 144, and see if I can feel a difference.
They do not know the difference between all of the model variants.
Yeah, that's true.
Ask the average person.
I remember for a long time, people were accidentally buying Xbox One S's instead of Xbox Series S's. It was really funny. Like for the first, I don't know, year of the new Xbox launch, they look so similar. It's really not the consumer's fault here. Microsoft did not do a good job of differentiating what their consoles are supposed to fucking look and feel like. They use the same controller, it's still a white box, and it still has the little black circle. The black circle is just darker on the new one. Motherfucker, that's not fair. I actually don't blame consumers too much for that one.
Person what the difference between an Xbox Series S
and an
Xbox Series X are, and
that one, no. X sounds like a gamer word, and S sounds like a standard word or like a casual word. S, okay. X, yeah, that's the gamery. If you can't determine that X is the better one, then that's on you, right? When I think of something like mobile graphics cards, right? Mobile graphics cards have things like S or X at the end of them when it comes to Radeon, and I know the S variants, like the RX 7600S, is the weaker version of the RX 7600X MT. I know that. I'm not dumb. MXT, my bad. MXT. I know that because there's an X and I'm like, that's the better one. But I'm a gamer, so.
And I can guarantee you that they won't know. People don't want to make decisions when buying a console. They just want to play what they want to play. They just want to buy a box, plug it in, and go. But that's not the case anymore, as players have to choose between the model they want and then performance and fidelity modes. The average gamer doesn't.
Look at all these things that it's asking you before you can buy the console online to ensure that you're getting the console that's right for you. Real story, valid. My brother-in-law, he bought an Xbox Series S about maybe like 7 months ago. He bought a Series S, the white one. So it comes with 512 gigs of storage, no disk drive, and a controller. He also bought physical games because the person who sold him the Xbox, the store clerk, said, yeah, if it says Xbox Series on it, I mean, you can play it on any of the Xbox Series consoles. It doesn't have a disk drive. But of course, as a normal consumer who has not bought a console in a long time, his last console was like the Xbox 360 or the PS3. He never really had a PS4 or Xbox One, right? His last console being that long ago, how is he, as a normal person who's just trying to buy a console and play some GTA, play some Call of Duty, Fortnite with his son, how is he supposed to know that? He's not. He has no fucking idea. There's 3 different variations. There's like 8 different variations of this box now. There's the black one, the white one, and then the black one, the white one. There's 4 variations minimum of these fucking boxes. And 2 of them have disk drives, and 2 of them don't. Or 3 of them have disk drives, and 1 of them doesn't. My bad. Or 3 of them don't have a disk drive, 1 does. That's terrible for a consumer who's just trying to get a box and play some video games. It doesn't help.
Care for these things because all they do is play Call of Duty or Madden. It's not simple anymore. And when consoles get pricier,
you see, I said Call of Duty and
GTA,
and they said Call of Duty and Madden
from a consumer perspective. And the frustration just gets worse from there. With the advent of multiplayer and live service models becoming more prevalent, that meant that server infrastructure became more expensive to maintain for both Microsoft and Sony. So they had to begin charging users the the privilege to play online. So not only did they have to pay a monthly subscription to Xbox Live or PlayStation Plus, but they also have to pay for their own current internet subscription on top of it just to play Call of Duty.
That's actually a lot of reason why some people left console.
With some benefits to ease the cost, like free games or even services like Xbox Game Pass, which allow a subscriber access to free games just by subscribing. Xbox Game Pass has changed substantially since it was introduced in 2017, especially this year. It used to be a really amazing offer of paying a $10 sub to play the newest games Microsoft published.
Yeah, now it's like 15, isn't it? It went up.
Indie titles, but in 2024 they've recently changed it so you can't play new
It's $19.99 now.
Microsoft Studios like Blizzard or Activision day one, and they raised the price to $15.
Oh my gosh!
It doesn't give you less, but it also costs
more.
So if you wanted what you previously had with those,
you know what that's called? That's called cornering the market. For those people who don't understand, whenever things are too good to be true, when it comes to business, when it comes to tech, when it comes to subscription services, it probably is. Like, you look at something like Crunchyroll, which for a long time made itself to be the most valuable and the most value-oriented of all of the subscription services for watching online anime. As you see now, they're raising their prices because the other competition is dead. It's gone. You look at something like Netflix, where Netflix for a long time was like $4.99, $5.99. It was the value king, and it gained all of its user base. It got almost everyone has Netflix now, right? Most normal people have Netflix. I have Netflix, and I don't really use it, but most people have Netflix. It comes with my phone bill, so it's not that expensive. Anyways, it's not as cheap anymore. It's not as cheap. You can't share screens. They cornered the market enough that now they can adjust their prices. They can basically surge price forever now because they've realized, ooh, yay, we have enough of the market share that a lot of these people just won't quit. They won't leave. We've already got them. We've got them hooked. They're reeled in. That's what this is.
Those day one first party releases, you're going to be expected to fork over $20 a month just to play Call of Duty when it comes out. Another thing I think is important to mention is that first party exclusives don't really have the weight they once had, as companies like Microsoft and Sony keep buying up these studios to ensure that they have a great catalog of IPs.
I think when sorry, Alloy, there we go. I think when Sony and Microsoft were out there using the studios, the smaller studios that they had to create phenomenal products. Like, you think of Crash Bandicoot and you think of it mostly as Sony. You think of Spyro, you almost think of it mostly as Sony. Crash Bandicoot, I'm sorry, I already said Crash Bandicoot. Sly Cooper and Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank. Insomniac is owned by Sony, right? So that's what you think. Naughty Dog, you think of those, Uncharted, and you think of Sony. Instead of buying studios, they just use the in-house studios they've had for years to make phenomenal products. You look at something like Halo, you look at Gears of War. That really it? You know, you look at Forza, Spyro. I think I said Spyro, didn't I? You look at those and you think, yeah, these are Xbox. This is what Xbox is, and you know that now, like buying Call of Duty, right? Call of Duty is now Microsoft. Like, isn't that crazy to think about? Overwatch is now Microsoft because they own Activision. Microsoft owns Activision Blizzard. Overwatch 2 is Microsoft for all intent and purposes, right? I mean, they're not gonna go and take it off the Switch and take it off. I didn't hear Spyro. You're all good. They're not gonna take it off Sony and take it off Nintendo, but they own it. Now they're getting a slice of that pie. They're getting a cut. All of these games that instead, Tango Gameworks, all these games and studios that were originally independent studios and just made phenomenal games that went cross-plat, now instead they're locked to one platform to reel people in. And we know that the weight of that is that these studios cost a lot to buy, and now they're trying to make their money back by selling you the game exclusively on their platform, knowing that you can't get it anywhere else. Right? They got to get you in the door. They got to get you to buy the Xbox, to buy the controllers, to buy the cameras, to buy the headsets. And now you got to buy the game, the new game, the Redfall, the Hi-Fi Rush. You got to buy it. And that doesn't feel as promising or as genuine as when they made their own exclusive games generally, right? Like Halo is Bungie, technically, but it's always really been a Microsoft IP, and we think of it as an Xbox IP. It's that same concept where we know these established franchises existed before, and we know that there was outside studios making these franchises for these companies. Now it feels as if just buying up companies feels more artificial. They're artificially inflating how many exclusives they have, and there's still not enough for Sony's end. There's still like fucking 12. That's barely any games in 5 years.
anything with these IPs. These studios don't make games as frequently as they used to, so the value of console exclusives has shot way down as a result. And not to mention that the quality of these exclusives has also been incredibly suspect. If we look back last year, Redfall, it was one of Microsoft's biggest failures to date, and their track record with first-party releases hasn't been great since then. They've either been flops or meh at best.
Isn't that just a tech demo? Like, let's be real. Isn't Hellblade 2 just a tech demo? And Halo's really fun, but it didn't start that way. It started real boring, real basic, and really scummy when it came to the monetization. The only thing I think Halo did right from launch, when it came to monetization, is making it so battle passes were not FOMO. You could always go back and grind for an old battle pass tier that you missed, which is really cool.
Has been in a bit of a sour spot since 3.
But I think Halo's actually Halo Infinite is their best one so far.
Made a bit of a comeback as of late.
It's a lot better than their other than the other 343
strong
Halos.
Catalog of premium single player games, but they rarely release these games as their developers take way too long.
Thank
to
you.
Make them.
It takes.
And when Sony tries
Why is
to
it
go
10
outside of
years
their
for a
comfort
game?
zone with games like Concord, the results speak for themselves. AAA first-party games by Sony and Microsoft haven't been consistently good in a long time, and even when a first-party exclusive does hit either console, their time on that console is limited, as everything makes its way to PC.
I don't think that matters.
Microsoft has made it a business.
I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that keeping your game off another console, a competing console, but putting it on PC is fine, because that means that if there's a market of PC players that want to play your game and otherwise will have to try to emulate it or pirate ROMs to emulate it, they don't have to now. Now they can just purchase it, right? If there's no DRM, no crazy shit, a lot of people will just buy the games they want to buy if they have the money. Like, let's be real. Like, be fucking for real. So putting these games on PC makes sense. Calling games, saying, oh, there's no real exclusives, and now they're all going to PC, that's so shitty for the industry. I don't think it's really that bad of a thing, because a lot of casual gamers are never going to think about a PC. They're never going to think about a gaming PC. They're not going to build one. They're not going to have one. They don't care. It's too much effort. So it's fine that they are PC and one console. It's if they stop being exclusive at all that it's like, well, then why did I buy this box instead of buying the other box?
Strategy that all of their first-party games release on PC day one. And Sony has also made it so that their single-player games make it to PC eventually, like God of War Ragnarok being the most recent example. So let's get this straight. Consoles are more expensive than they've ever been. Games are getting more expensive. Game quality is becoming much more scrutinized.
I want to check something. He said more expensive. I gotta check. I'm gonna look this up right now. Magnavox Odyssey, price adjusted for inflation in 2006 was $480. So it should be a lot higher now. Yeah, the last I see of the Magnavox Odyssey. What's another one? Let me see. Let me just, because he's saying video games, like consoles, are more expensive. And first of all, $500 isn't that bad, right? But $700 is crazy. I have to look up inflation adjusted. The 3DO. The 3DO is over $1,000, and that console fucking blew, right? And if you look at something like, yeah, I just mentioned the Magnavox Odyssey. If you look at something like the original Nintendo Entertainment System, that would be something like $500 or $600 today. They're not really that different in price. I think the main thing you have to think about, yeah, like Super Nintendos are really expensive. They were, no, and especially if you inflation adjust them now, they are expensive. Look at this. This launched at $699.99. Let me move this. Look, $699.99. That's the same price the PS5 Pro for a piece of shit. Nobody bought the 3DO. That's what makes it even worse. That's what makes it even worse. They thought that this was a good price tag for a console, and it was so bad, and inflation adjusted, it's double the price of a PS5 Pro. That's fucking insane. No, video game consoles are not more expensive now than they were before. That is a fallacy. It's false. It's made up. Inflation adjusted, consoles have always been roughly the same price. There have been a couple hundred under, or like 150 under, 150 over. Okay, but for the vast majority of them, when it comes to consoles, not handheld gaming, They're all the same price. They're roughly the same price. It's really not that different.
Because of this increased cost, you're forced to pay to play online the
Didn't
games that you purchase.
Didn't the PS4 launch at like $400? The base PS4 launched at like $400, right? $399. Inflation adjusted, that's probably $360. I'm sorry, that's probably like $460, $470. That's almost $500 for a way worse fucking console. By the way, Jaguar was ass.
Exclusives, and choosing a console isn't as simple as it once was.
Yeah, too many console variations is a bad thing.
List,
I say that.
It kind of sounds like we're just paying a lot more for a lot less, and things are just worse than they used to be. To me, these sound like nothing but negatives. So this kind of leads me to ask.
Okay, so I will say, he said nothing but negatives. If Sony also had a box like Microsoft, how it was cheaper and had a worse GPU compute, it didn't have a disk drive, and had half the storage, but you could still play all the same games, then we'd be talking differently here. I would say that gaming is better because then there's a budget option and a good option. You can find Xbox Series S's for like $200. $200 of money now is still not really a lot of money when it comes to a gaming console. You lose a lot of features. Not really. The only thing you lose, let's be real, the only thing you lose is the fucking disk drive and half the storage. But if you look at that as a gaming value, the Xbox Series S is an amazing value. So if we had something on the Sony end that was the opposite, kind of like the Nintendo Switch Lite, like you look at the Nintendo Switch, $300, $350 for the OLED, and then you look at the Nintendo Switch Lite at $200. For $200, you can get yourself an Xbox Series S, which is still like 2 or 3 times the performance of a Nintendo Switch Lite with double the RAM almost. I think it's 10 gigs instead of 6. So, but you understand what I'm saying. There is good value in gaming, but it's hard to find it, and it's not even on both fronts.
Why buy a console instead of a PC?
$200
are what
$200 to $300 on a computer is ass compared to $200 to $300 on the Xbox Series S. That's why. When it comes to the PS5 Pro, on the other hand, $700 for a console is a lot. $700 for a PC is pretty mid-range, and you can get a well-balanced PC for that price that won't outshine the PS5 by any means. It will not outshine the PS5 Pro, but it will be a more balanced system with more features because of the fact that you can do all the same things you can do on a PS5. But you can't. What's the word I'm looking for here? You can't use it as a straight-up game console. It will always be a PC, and that's a good thing and a bad thing depending on who you ask.
What you want, and you're seeking the best performance on the market, then the PC is
it doesn't show up.
Not only do they offer unprecedented flexibility so that the
it doesn't show up, by the way.
Their experience
I know you see it, Creeper. Don't worry about it.
It also offers console experiences for the same price or often cheaper than what they can get on console as long as they are patient. Now, for some context, I grew up a console gamer. I grew up playing on GameCube and PS2 in the early 2000s, and once the
started with the Super Nintendo
generation came out, I slowly transitioned away from consoles as I became more independent. I came to the conclusion on my own that PC gaming offered much more variety.
I only recently moved to PC,
and even
like fully, like 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago.
I grew up playing. I would still buy the occasional consoles, but I simply did not engage with the latest generation because I just didn't think it was worth it. There were only a handful of games on them that I couldn't play, but all of them made it to PC eventually, so I just didn't bother with them. The industry has hit a plateau when it comes to console gaming. It used to be that with every new
I'm just playing Ishin and listening. No, I'm saying you can see that message, but it doesn't show up, so don't worry about it.
Would follow. These new generations
that might be the best Twitch feature ever.
Many new forms of games that just weren't possible on previous generations, with much more bombast than what was previously possible. But with the latest generation of consoles, it felt like a tipping point. AAA publishers are now locked into this rat race to see who can push out marginally better looking graphics than everyone else on the market.
And it's a race to the bottom. Okay, can we be honest? It's a race to the bottom because the amount of reward you get, I think the way they viewed it and thought it would happen is, ooh, well, if we invest this much money into the game, we get this much back. So that means if we invest like 10 times that, we'll get 10 times back. Like, they just assumed that the bubble was exponentially growing, right? It would grow at the same rate or an exponential rate. But what they're doing is they're actually making a bubble so big that eventually it's just going to pop. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like we've had a video game crash? Does that sound like an esports crash? Like, I mean, these things all have big bubbles and huge investment and a lot of time and resources and money put into them. And then they pop, they blow up, they explode. They implode, really, because they're not sustainable. I don't think making $300 million games every time you release a game and waiting 7 to 8 years to release a game is sustainable. It doesn't make for a good market when it comes to gaming for anyone, really.
Bigger. Everything needs to be better looking. It needs to be presentable. And they are doing all this while making the most bland, cookie cutter, mass market experiences possible in order to turn a profit instead of making something fun to play. Games
I think fun is way more important than graphics.
So the industry is finding ways to monetize what already exists without taking the risk.
Y'all seen the shit I play. Y'all think I give a fuck about graphics?
Exciting. And I think it's the wrong way to go about it. Instead of delivering groundbreaking fidelity and samey padded out gameplay to maintain the AAA facade, developers should focus more on pushing out games with similar fidelity that offer new and unique gameplay experiences that haven't been experienced before. Hell, I'm more inclined to play shorter, worse looking games.
I love that meme.
They can offer brand new experiences.
I want shorter games. I want devs to be paid more. I want shorter games with worse graphics. And I'm not kidding.
And what they did with Tears of the Kingdom, for instance. Tears of the Kingdom looks identical in graphical fidelity and presentation to Breath of the Wild, but it changes up existing gameplay models and plays with them in new and exciting ways to give the players something they've never played before. Nintendo is really good about this, honestly. If Sony and Microsoft
Nintendo puts out banger after banger after banger.
Nintendo is off in the park having a stroll. It's not even a race. They're just in their own lane doing what they do, which is make fun and unique games using existing IPs.
As much as we hate Nintendo for being scummy,
afraid to try something
they make bangers.
Unless it's Pokemon, and then they just recycle.
Oh yeah, except Pokemon
every year and sue any potential.
Pokemon kind of fucking sucks.
You know, normal stuff. But Nintendo.
Okay, I just want to talk about that real quick. Couldn't they have used anything other than a fucking ball? Let's be real. They could have used like a little cell phone. They could have used like a square-shaped object, a pyramid-shaped object, a dual disc. They could have used literally. They chose to use a ball. That's on Power World. I'm not defending Power World on using a fucking ball when you're making your Pokemon clone. Are you stupid? I'm not defending that.
Nintendo also doesn't let games pass through their walled garden. First-party Nintendo titles never make it outside of their consoles,
and that's why their games get emulated.
Almost never re-released. So players often take to emulation or having to re-buy the older games when Nintendo deems they are worthy of a re-release. But that's a topic for
the fact that she's over here making tables and shit is so sexist. But whatever.
Games stick to one console anymore because it is proven to not be profitable. Console exclusives used to be a tool to encourage people to buy your console over the other, but that's just not really the case anymore. Console exclusives aren't really exclusive anymore, and it's for a couple of reasons. Reason number one being that these games are getting way too expensive to make, as mentioned earlier, and the best way to recuperate costs is to sell to
let them on multiple platforms as possible,
even if it means selling it on a competitor's console. Reason number two being that the consoles being their own self-contained ecosystems isn't really a thing anymore. With the advent of
crossplay
games
is
like
a thing for everything.
During the crossplay between consoles and PCs, anyone can play.
I blame Sony for not having crossplay in Fortnite longer, by the way. Sony was like, no, we want our ecosystem to be our ecosystem. No crossplay for the longest time. And they kept getting pushed back and they kept getting pushed back until we finally got it. And then a bunch of games, it opened the floodgate. I never thought I'd say this, but thank God for Fortnite because it opened the floodgate for the console war, the box war to be over. Who gives a shit? You no longer have to ask your friend, oh, you have the new Call of Duty? You have the new Madden? What do you have? And I think maybe Madden still is not crossplay, but you have the new Call of Duty. What do you have it on? You have it on Xbox? Okay, well, see you next generation, bro. I'm on PlayStation. Like, you don't have to do that anymore. And I'm glad because it makes games more open and it makes them more lively. For the love of God.
Play with everyone now. So when it doesn't matter what console you're playing on anymore, why should it matter what console you buy a game on? The more I talk about consoles and think
yeah, you know what? I bet you Robotrek didn't fucking patent the Pokeball because Pokemon did, which means that if Pokemon patent Pokeball, Robotrek hasn't had a sequel, right? You see how now they can't use that gameplay mechanic? It's fucking patented. I mean, I don't like the way the patent law works, but if that's the fucking law, get over it. So, yeah, that's how it works.
Think about what they offer in today's market.
Oh, damn, that guy sucks at shooting.
Like
I thought I was bad.
Deep dive into PC gaming
he's good.
was the best choice I've made in a long time. Now, don't get me wrong. I love PC gaming, but I also realize that it's not for everyone. It can be a costly hobby if you don't know what to expect, but I think the value proposition is much more than that of a console. I think if you're looking to be gaming in the long term, a PC is just overall the better value proposition.
if you're ready to tinker, I think PC is better, and the reason why is because you can upgrade parts as you need them, right? As long as you start with a platform that's upgradable, you can start with like a 14th gen. I don't know, let's go 12th gen, okay? 13th and 14th gen. 13th and 14th gen have some problems unless you hard cap their frequencies and the TDP they can use so they don't blow up. Let's go with 12th gen. You can start with like a 12th gen i3, so that's a 4-core 8 thread, and I don't know, an RTX 3050 6GB for something like 450 to $500. You could slowly upgrade that. Now you want to move on to an i5 or an i7 on the 12th generation platform, right? You want to change out your motherboard. You started with the DDR4 motherboard, move on to a DDR5 motherboard. Buy new RAM, buy new motherboard, same CPU even. Boom, slot in a better graphics card because now your CPU is getting faster RAM, so those 4 cores have more RAM or faster RAM to work with, making it feel like less of a bottleneck experience, right? You take that 3050 6GB and you turn that to a 4060 Ti or a 4070 Super, and then you move on to an i5 or an i7 or an i9 on the 12th generation platform. And all of that means that you're making a platform that can be built upon and that feels more future-proof. Future-proof is the word people like to use. If you want future-proof, I'm going to say go for AM5. Because AM5, as long as it's like AM4, we're going to have like 5 generations on this bitch, okay? We're on like the Ryzen 7000 series, and 8000 series was APU, so 9000 series, 10,000, 11,000, and 12,000, right? That's, say we have 5. We'll even count 8th gen, even though it barely counts. You got like 4 or 5 more years in you if you build like a Ryzen 5 7600F PC with like an RTX 4060 for close to $1,000, and then you change out that GPU for a 5080 or a 6080 in 2 or 3 years.
Any way you squeeze it. Not only can you play recent releases from both
also
Sony
fuck 16
and
gigabytes of RAM. Go to
you can
32.
play them in comparable and if not better quality than what they initially released in. Right now, I'm playing through Final Fantasy 16 for the first time after its 1 year of exclusivity right now on PS5, and I'm getting it to play in 4K, 100 frames per second, which is not something I think even a PS5 Pro could push out once it's released. Same thing I did with Ghost of Tsushima and Ratchet and Clank.
Ghost of Tsushima is also a PS4 game though, so that's not the same.
With both of those titles.
Not a very fair comparison.
Run brilliantly, and I'll be able to play anything Sony or Microsoft throw out in the future for a good long while without any hiccups, just because of the brute force I have under the hood. This performance, however, did come at a pretty substantial cost.
Yeah, tell them how much you spent.
Together with a 4080 costs about $1,700 to put together, which is 2 PS5 Pros put together with some change. That's not to mention that I put together the PC myself, and
so
not
no
everyone
labor
is willing to do that. So if you were looking to get a decent pre-built with similar specs, the assembly costs can vary. These things
$1,900 to $2,000
really
probably.
Expensive. Like $2,000 expensive,
yep, told you.
for a brand new kitted out PC with all the bells and whistles. I was also able to save a few $100 because I had some pieces left over from my last build that I was able to swap out. Swapping out pieces shouldn't be considered the norm though. PCs are complicated things that are never consistent between people, so everyone will have different experiences with each one they handle. I
know someone who has a significantly more powerful rig than me and cannot run Tekken 8 on their computer. Their computer does not like Tekken 8. But their computer is stronger than mine. I have no problems running Tekken 8. I can even stream Tekken 8 off a fucking laptop. But their desktop, for some reason, it just doesn't want to work right. PCs are not a consistent experience. And that's why a lot of people like consoles, which I understand. So it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to put yourself into, knowing that there's potentially inconsistencies or there's like some era of mystique or mystery. It kind of sucks.
You're running an AMD rig that doesn't have the more refined drivers that NVIDIA does, or maybe you're running a laptop from 2011. I see you. To me, the price is well worth what I can do with a PC. I spend every day at it, either gaming or editing or writing, so it's kind of my
He's made his money back. Yeah.
Life. It's an excellent place to be for work and play, so it's well worth it.
I stream and game and clip YouTube videos. Yeah, I mean, what can I say?
For me to put a lot of money into it, but some people don't want that kind of complexity in their life. It's easier to buy a box that goes under your TV and not have to think about making sure your PC is running well, performing diagnostics to get optimal.
He's mashing the shit out of attack. Y'all see that?
To future-proof it for bigger games that might come down the road. And let's be honest, the PC gaming community is a bit of a cult, honestly. They will never pass up an opportunity to let you know how much it costs to make their custom shitbox 4000 with.
I don't do that. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, my computer was $800. $800 laptop with 16 gigs of RAM, an i5 12450H, and an RTX 4056 gigabyte. I don't give a shit that my computer's cheap. You know what? I'm happy my computer's cheap and doesn't use a lot of power because I don't want my electricity bill to be expensive. If I could afford it something better, maybe I would have got something a little better, but not that much better. Not no $1,700 probably.
Dual toilet flush cooling systems and 64 gigafarts, and how it could easily outdo the PS5
I don't have 16 gigs of RAM anymore. I have 32 now.
They always want
my computer is definitely worse than a PS5, and I know that. I don't care.
Honestly, good beefy PCs not only offer the ability to play today's releases, but also everything from the inception of PC gaming. The backlog is astounding, and backwards compatibility isn't an issue for older games as long as you have the grit and determination needed to dig through a forum archive to learn how to boot up a game released back in 2005.
Yeah, and how to get your controller to work too.
Even then, we have the wonderful people over at GOG who have made
GOG, baby.
PC gaming much simpler as they reformat these literal good old games into ways modern operating systems can handle. Nothing is off limits when it comes to games on PC.
Yeah, GOG's pretty sick.
That includes emulation. I mean, if you're a PC gamer, you know about emulation.
Say emulation.
There are many resources on the OpenSea for those daring enough to use the Google search bar. Not to mention that there's no need to pay an online subscription fee to play the game.
That's my favorite.
Purchased on PC. So there's that little.
You can't. You're not making me pay to play Fortnite. Fuck you.
But I can also understand the appeal of console gaming. But it's all
a
series of trade-offs. While PC gaming offers much more flexibility in terms of experience, it's a much more costly endeavor both in time and currency. The majority of people that play games do it either.
I think the value of the game box when it comes to console is better the cheaper it is. The further it is from a PC's standpoint and in price. So an Xbox Series S, unbeatable fucking value. So great. And then you start moving towards the X and the PS5 Pro and you're like, I could kind of build a PC for that price. That's pretty good. I don't know if I really want that. Like, so it's really about making sure that the thing you get, even if I don't have to pay for a console sub, you don't have to, at least not on PSN. I know. Yeah, like most of the free-to-play free-to-play multi-plat games, you don't have to pay for online anymore. But that's what I'm getting at. No, yeah, it's the same with Xbox. You don't. But what I'm saying is the further you are from the price spectrum of a good PC, the more value it is to be a gamer in that ecosystem. There's no $300 PlayStation 5. If there was, I'd be like, yeah, that's a great value. That's great. That's amazing. But it's not. It's just not true. Sorry. There's a $300 Xbox. Great value. Xbox Series S is amazing. What the fuck? I can't build a PC that's as strong as an Xbox Series S for $300. I can't do it. Not that it's brand new. I'd have to be using used parts. I could probably beat it with used parts, but it's not the same. That doesn't count. I'm not counting that. I'm not one of those people.
They're on smartphones or via consoles, and only those who are truly locked into hardcore gaming build dedicated PCs for it. I am the minority when it comes to my choice to be a PC gamer, and I know it full well. But I've come to realize that I'm just not in the market for console gaming like I used to be.
Me too.
I've come to realize that I'm just not the market for console gaming like I used to.
Well, he said that twice.
There will always be people out there looking to pick one up for their needs. Children, busy 9-to-5 workers, and old tech-illiterate people will always
Old tech-illiterate people? What the fuck are you trying to say about me?
Out there for people like
I'm also a
that
9-to-5 worker and I use a
Duty,
PC.
Madden or Forza, because let's be honest, that's all these people play. And that's fine. They can like what they like, and that's why these consoles exist. But I want people to be as informed as possible when it comes to making a long-term purchase like this. I'm the type of dude that wants the best from the games that I play, and I want to play everything. So I'm okay to pay the premium to get that kind of experience. But with the way the console market is going, I think we're starting to see the traditional consoles starting to fade. Console sales are starting to slow pretty dramatically as the economy is in a really rough spot.
Yep.
People aren't spending on consoles like they used to
because it's too expensive.
Microsoft is making a huge push into the streaming market.
Yep. I also, like I said, I mentioned the cheaper console, which is a boon for like broke gamers, right? Because $300 is not that bad. But then also cloud gaming and streaming services and gaming subscriptions like Xbox Game Pass. Sony knows what they're doing. I don't know. I'm sorry. Xbox knows what they're doing. Microsoft knows what they're doing. For as much as maybe there's some problems with Xbox and maybe we don't fully like everything that's going on, they have a grasp on where the future of gaming is headed. Sony's trying to stay in the same old antiquated or halfway antiquated field that they've been doing since the PS3. Nintendo is truly in an antiquated field, but they're doing it so well that how do you complain?
longer is
Fuck,
the
man.
Xbox system the primary way to play. Now you can stream games on your phone and your TV. Microsoft
The Logitech
wants
G Cloud, yeah,
everything
perfect
and
example.
everyone locked into their ecosystem, either via streaming a game from a Game Pass subscription or by making their games no longer console exclusive. Their vision of the console market isn't what Sony or even Nintendo.
They need to make
envisions.
an actual
Microsoft
Xbox
wants the
handheld, and they'll
Xbox
cook.
brand to be as
An Xbox
ubiquitous
handheld,
as Windows is,
and maybe an
but
Xbox
see,
Cloud
they want
handheld,
it
and
to
they'll
be
cook.
on
It's
everything,
over.
and nothing will stop their journey to be the first one to do so. Nintendo and Sony still certainly have their own niches carved out in the market, but we're going to see
Mostly
portable
Nintendo.
consoles be the primary driver behind console sales going forward, I think.
Yeah,
People
Nintendo
love
is cooking.
portability. They love the convenience of it. That's why the Switch sold gangbusters, and why the PlayStation Portal has sold so well despite being a $200 accessory.
It's
still
literally a
requires
tablet.
PS5, but it also allows you to play your PS5 games on the go, and there will always be a market for that. Let's also not forget the Steam Deck
Woo!
and how it hit as
Portable
hard as it
PCs,
did.
let's
It
go,
combined
baby.
the convenience of the Switch and allowed you to carry your Steam library with you anywhere you went. It's truly a brilliant idea. It was Valve's attempt to ease people into the PC market and creating their own user
I just saw
interface that
Hades. I
minimized the
hope
friction
Wizard of
for
Legend
PC
2
gaming.
runs on
They
my
have something on their
my
hands,
handheld.
and the rest of the industry is catching on. And
Wizard
now
of
there are
Legend
rumors
2
that
looks so good.
Microsoft's next console will be portable as well. The gap between
God.
console games and phones is becoming thinner and thinner with each passing year, and I think that's something to be cautiously optimistic about. And we're even seeing companies such as Capcom port games like Resident Evil 8 to phones, which is just crazy to me that we're at this point. So with everything
That's
I've
awesome.
said so far, is there still a reason to buy a console? I think yes, but cautiously so. Consoles are getting worse for consumers because of their diminishing returns, but they still offer the best value to cost ratio for gaming right now, despite how their prices remain stagnant. Consoles are something that you buy every 8 years or so.
Yeah,
and
that's
they
true.
still have longevity past
After that,
point, and
yeah.
I think that's amazing.
Especially
Do I
the
think that
physical
games
ones.
being so large in size that you can only download 2 at a time is great? No, but there are some things you can do to mitigate that if you're looking to do so. I'm also not a huge fan of
I have a conspiracy. Am I the only one who thinks that games are really big on purpose so that you don't have enough hard drive space to play competitor games, right? Like Fortnite is really big so that you don't have enough room to play Call of Duty, and Call of Duty is really big so you don't have enough room to play Apex Legends. Madden is really big so you don't have enough room to play NBA. Okay, like you guys feel me? That's just a conspiracy I have.
of the
I could be
cost
wrong.
associated with having to play a game online. It feels really antiquated.
I
considering
hope,
how
like,
many games releasing
game
today
devs don't come and kill
require
me
an
for that
internet
one.
connection to
Maybe
work
the
properly.
publishers.
It
I feel like
feels
it's the
as though
publishers.
console manufacturers and developers keep
If I go
asking
missing,
for
y'all know what
more
happened.
and more with little in return, and consumers are going to hit a breaking point. They wanted a cheap gaming experience, not to be price gouged with increasing game prices and subscription prices just to play the games. that they
$7 for a
want
game
to
isn't that
play.
expensive.
I'd
You'll
say
be
if
alright.
you're fed up with that and want to experience something new and fresh and have some extra cash laying around, maybe it would be worth it to finally give PC gaming a shot. It has so many benefits that console gaming just doesn't offer, as long as you're willing to get over a few rough bumps in the learning process. Everything is possible and playable, and it's playable in 4K, 120 FPS, unlike console gaming where every game released will be a shot in the dark in terms of performance. I want every
I have a PC gaming handheld, and it's a pain in the ass because it's Windows, right? My FPS or my refresh rate got locked to 2. I had 2 hertz. I was stuck on a 2 hertz 720p refresh rate. It was really funny. I had to figure out how to fix that. I had to uninstall drivers, roll back a device driver for the graphics card for the GPU that's coupled to the APU, and then reinstall a new driver, reinstall the Radeon Adrenaline software, re-download that driver, and then bada bing, bada boom, I got all my full refresh rate of 60 hertz back. Like, PCs are a problem. PCs are a bitch. They suck. But when you learn how to work with them, they're totally worth it.
everyone to be an informed consumer. Do your due diligence. Do your research. Think about what's best for you and let it simmer.
Also, 2 hertz feels
Everything's got
terrible, can
positives
confirm.
and negatives, so it's best to go in with a level head. Just know that there's always a Steam sale around the corner with a cheap
Real.
copy of Deus Ex with your name on it. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. Are you a console gamer? Are you a PC elitist? The difference between the console market and PCs is a really interesting conversation that is really worth discussing. There are merits to both, but I don't really think there's a solid answer to either. It all depends, really. Huge thank you to the channel channel's members listed here. I wouldn't be making videos today without these.
I'm letting him do his
And
outer
extra special
outer
thanks go to
spiel.
the $3 channel members.
Oh yeah,
are Cilantro.
I love the
and
name.
The Wendigot. If you would like to support the channel like these fine folks, you can click the join button down below next to the like and subscribe buttons. October is going to be a rough month because I want to tackle both the Diablo 4 expansion and Metaphor ReFantazio. Since Metaphor is a behemoth of a game, I think Diablo 4 will come first in the video list, but I'll have something out before I tackle either of those. Be sure to keep your eyes on the subscription feed for when those drop. And as always, this has been Testing
I'm already
Triangles.
subscribed.
Thanks for watching.
You guys should subscribe. You guys should subscribe and like the video and watch it, because if you just like the video, it does terrible things to their retention rate, because then you clicked on a video and didn't watch any of it. You already watched it here with me, but I'm a really small YouTuber. And you could also go and comment in their section and stuff. This isn't even going up on my YouTube channel until days after, right? I'm looking at this a day ago for them, right? It says 1 day ago. You guys are going to see this like Thursday or some shit. I'm not one of those people who wants to take away the viewership of the people who make great content for streamers to react to and stuff. So you don't have to worry about that. But video is really good. I think that it raises a lot of good points. It kind of skips over and glosses over Nintendo. I was glazing Nintendo a lot, which really sucks because I hate them. But it kind of glosses over a lot of the upsides of consoles when it comes to the console manufacturer that does it the best, which is Nintendo, and the console manufacturer who's doing a good job of keeping the budget sector on lock in the Xbox Series X and Microsoft, right? We're really only talking about, it really feels like the whole complaint of this video is PlayStation and PlayStation's ecosystem, because PlayStation's ecosystem is a console still, but it's the worst of it. Like, it doesn't really feel like it's ever worth getting a PlayStation. There's not enough exclusives. The exclusives eventually end up on PC. The graphics and the performance is really bad in comparison to PC. There's a console subscription with no extra value. There's no Xbox Game Pass, and the box is really fucking expensive, right? If you look at Nintendo and you look at Xbox, that's not really the case. Right? You still have to pay to play online. But you have a cheaper box, and you have pretty decent exclusives on Nintendo for sure. Not really sure about Xbox. I don't really fuck with consoles. I'm a PlayStation. I mean, I'm a PC guy through and through. We'll stay that way for a really long time. I don't really feel like going back to consoles. Do you feel like going back to consoles? Leave it in his comment section down below. Leave it in my comment section down below. This is a great video. You guys should like it. Once again, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys for hanging out, watching the live stream, watching this reaction. Peace.